think potentially there's an over-ordering and fundamentally out of sync. Because when we sat down with shipyards and someone like GTT in February last year, the conversation was, where's the next order going to come from? And as soon as March 11th had happened, then we had the plethora of ships being ordered last year, and 56 were ordered without any new LNG being committed. Right? So potentially you had this huge surplus. But what that did prompt was a rush from the major energy companies to secure some of that shipping very early on. And they took on the short-term supply. But then we continue to have some more orders. And currently we've probably got about 32 naked ships.
Other sectors are looking at LNG because it's the one positive story in the shipping industry at the moment. I don't think that the fleet is over-ordered right now. I think one of the problems is the number of vessels due to be delivered in 2013 to 2014, and I think there will be a mismatch between supply and demand for those 2 years.
LNG is a very conservative industry, and the natural inclination is to go with people you know, that you can trust, they've done it before, rather than the newcomers. So I think it really depends a lot on just what the state of the industry is and how tight it's going to be.
I think the key constraint is the fact that it's a very costly industry to enter, which is why it has been driven by long-term relationships in the past. So there is a role if the amount of LNG trading increases. If importers and exporters retrench in a sense to the long-term contract, then there may be a danger to those short-term, the new entrants in terms of finding employment for their ships.
I think some of them will exit. It is a fickle business, but the good guys, if they spend the time and effort, then there's no reason why they shouldn't fail. LNG shipping isn't rocket science at the end of the day, but because the duration of the vessel, the charters has come down, then taking a vessel for 3 years isn't a threat, but taking a vessel for a 20-year contract, then you really don't want in the hands of a newcomer.
The current exports planned from the US, as far as I'm aware, have destination flexibility, which is something that in the past exporters have not wanted, because they want to be able to control where the importer sends the cargo to ensure that the price the importer paid is the price that that cargo attracts. What destination flexibility enables is for the exporter of the cargo to send that cargo wherever they like. So the exporter has no control, and the importer, if you like, or the transporter of the cargo can maximise their gain from where that cargo gets sent to.
Pre-2000, virtually every long-term contract was destination restricted. I think what we've seen in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 or 6, is much more flexibility. And even if it's not written into contracts, I think there's a recognition that it can well be on both sides' interests to allow cargoes to be moved. And I mean, that's why we've been seeing so much Atlantic Basin LNG going to Asia in the last 9–10 months, is even where there is a destination restriction, because prices are so much higher in Asia, it's in both sides' interest. So if you share the extra rent, then it happens. So I think that is just being built into the business now, and destination flexibility is seen to be important by both buyers and sellers. I think the Qataris are very clear that they want to make sure the North Field is developed in an optimum way. So I don't see them panicking into building more capacity just because they want to be the biggest.
I think they are well positioned in terms of being at the centre of the LNG importers, in the sense they are pretty much equidistant between Asia and Europe, whereas for Australia, their exports are pretty much guaranteed to stay in the Pacific Basin. They've never sent a cargo to the Atlantic Basin, for example, whereas cargoes do go the other way. Australia's supply is most likely to feed Asian demand, and so there still will be a role for Qatar, but it depends what the Qataris decide to do politically in terms of increasing their production, whether they remain the world's #1 or not.
I think Australia's influence will continue to increase, because so long as you have Middle East tensions, then you're going to have the Asian market looking for security of supply. So they will underpin the 20-year contract. So I think Australia is definitely focused on that long-term business for the buyers, because the buyers want it.
To a traditional exporter like Australia, I would say it would be more of a threat because the nature of the contracts being signed to export US shale gas are a threat to the traditional oil-indexed long-term 20-year contract. In terms of an importer or as someone involved in the shipping of LNG, it's an opportunity.
Everybody talks about shale gas in Europe, in China, in Argentina being something for 2020 plus. But if you go back 5 or 6 years, nobody was talking about shale gas doing what it's done in the States. And it seems logical in many ways that it is a long-term development outside the US, but then you look at what happened in the US, the technology is being transferred now, and certainly in some countries, China has got more shale gas reserves than the USA. If they do develop it, and we've seen in the past how quickly the Chinese can move, then that could make a difference. And if China's demand for LNG stops growing, then yes, it could have quite an impact on the whole market.
I think China's demand for gas will continue, but they will forever look for alternatives. And if they have a domestic source, they're going to use it. When it comes to the US, then I think it's fundamentally for exports.